informal interactions. Okay, not only are they apparently sexual harassers, or at least allegedly, with some significant allegations here, but they're also, unsurprisingly, incredibly stupid. I got all sent with dick pic. They'll never know where it came from. Eric, it's got your number on it. I'm your colleague. I have your phone number. It shows as Eric Bowling on my phone. And what is the point of these dick pics? Just to, like, annoy and offend people? Or is it to, in his mind, seduce them? In which case, you'd want to clearly label that it was yours. So, this is bizarre behavior, and it was at a time when Fox News, not so long ago, by the way, was where sexual harassment was running rampant, according to dozens of allegations from other women related to Ailes, O'Reilly, and others, and there was nothing being done about it. So, since it was consequence-free, I guess he thought, why not? Again, the messages were sent several years ago on separate occasions. The women did not solicit the messages, which they told colleagues were deeply upsetting and offensive. I would imagine so. The stuff that women have to put up with is unbelievable. I mean, you're like, oh, it's a colleague. Oh, he has me on his show. This is so much fun. Oh, no, he sent me his dick. Like, what an insane thing to do! I don't know, maybe I'm naive, maybe I don't know, but if that's a thing that people do, I guess so, but you don't do it to colleagues, you don't do it at work, of course that's a firing offense, that's insane! Okay, and don't send your picture of your penis to anyone who didn't ask for it. It's not a hard rule. Okay, well, more ways than one. Don't send pictures of your penis unless someone asked for it. Not complicated. Okay. But now here's his attorney, of course. Oh, no. But look at the denial. Denial. Mr. Bowling recalls no such inappropriate communications, does not believe he sent any such communications, and will vigorously pursue his legal remedies for any false and defamatory accusations that are made. Okay, so I know legalese, so let me break that down for you and translate it. When they say he recalls no such inappropriate communications, that means, well, unless you can prove otherwise that I definitely sent it, in which case I'll say, I didn't say I didn't send it, I just said I didn't recall sending it. The second part is, he does not believe he sent any such communication. If somebody accused me of that, I know I didn't say anything like that, and I'd be like, no, absolutely not, completely and utterly false. I don't believe I sent her a picture of my dick. No, you know. That's not a thing you forget. And he's going to pursue his legal remedies for any false and defamatory accusations that are made. They're not saying that he's going to sue now. They're just saying if there are false accusations, then we'll pursue legal charges. This is legal talk for, oh, God damn it, we did it. So I'm just breaking it down for you. Now, of course, Bowling, is he a hypocrite? Say it with me, the whole internet at the same time. Of course! Right? So, when it was Anthony Weiner sending dick pics, he said at the time, text us if you want a fair and balanced interview. No selfies, please. At the time, he knows he did the same thing. These Fox guys are unbelievable. He said about Anthony Weiner, he's a sick human being to continue to do this time and time again, continue to get caught, saying he's not going to do it again, gets caught again. Now, to be fair to Bowling there, he's not saying he's sick for sending the pictures, he's saying he's sick for getting caught time and time again. So, Eric, I guess that makes you sick right now. Okay. Now, another denial here, kind of. Bowling himself tweets out this morning after his suspension. Overwhelmed by all the support I have received, thank you. I look forward to clearing my name ASAP. Wait, again, there's no denial there. There's no clear saying, I didn't do it. I look forward to clearing my name, whether it's true or untrue. Amazing that in all this time, there is no clear denial. Okay, maybe not so amazing. They've got 14 sources! Okay, so, and of course, Howard Kurtz, whose main job in doing media critique at Fox News is to actually cover Fox News' ass. Every once in a while, he'll go out there and be like, oh, well, all the things that have happened at Fox are totally fine. I don't know what anybody's talking about. Thank you for that honest media critique. So he went out over the weekend and was like, None of these women have come forward. Well, first of all, look, how many times do we have to go through this? Being sexually harassed by someone who has some degree of power over you, and bowling, we get to decide if these women came back on air, if they continued as Fox News analysts, etc. That it is a very hard thing to come out for. So you don't blame people and say, why didn't you come out at the time? But again, at the time that it happened, they showed the pictures to other people. They have witnesses, okay? And it turns out, of course, Kurtz is wrong. Somebody did come forward. It's Dr. Caroline Heldman. She's an associate professor of politics at Occidental University. She said that Bowling referred to her as Dr. McHottie on the air and contacted her repeatedly via phone and text with vulgar and sexually explicit messages. So actually, we have a clip of that from back in the day. This is from 2011. Let's watch.
We have the American Revolution and the Boston Tea Party. We have the Civil Rights Movement and the Montgomery bus boycott. This is a part of our American fabric, and I'm happy to see that it's
actually there. The senator from Wisconsin, one of the senators, thinks that this is illegal. Eric?
Yeah, I'm shocked that she said the great Dr. McHottie said that it's the most American thing you can do. It's the least American thing you can do.
You see her reaction, they're like, Jesus, what am I going to do? Okay. All right, look, if he just left it at that, it's the usual Fox News crap, and they do that stuff on the air all the time. Eric Bowling also, when talking about a pilot for United Arab Emirates who was bombing ISIS, our ally, bombing ISIS, it was a historic first female pilot to do so, coming from the UAE. I said, I guess it's not boots on the ground, it's boobs on the ground. That's Eric Bowling. Okay, but we're used to their disgusting sexism on air. It's the stuff that happens off air that is far worse, apparently, in the case of Bowling. So Dr. Heldman there has more details. She says, Fox was the Wild West of sexual harassment. It was very clear to me that I would have been immediately off the air if I complained. And now we know through the stories that came out about Ailes and O'Reilly, that's exactly what happened to women who complained. And then she had more details in a Facebook post. She explained, he said, referring to Bowling, he wanted to fly me out to New York for in-studio hits and to have, quote, fun. He asked me to have meals with him on several occasions, but I found excuses not to go. Once he took me up to his office in New York, showed me his baseball jerseys, and in the brief time I was there, let me know that his office was his favorite place to have sex. That's not subtle. And by the way, almost the same exact MO as Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly. So, hey, I'll take you out to dinner, make sure that you come on, come to dinner with me, you don't come to dinner with me, you're off the air, come to my office, lewd references, etc. But Bowling did have the classy new age touch of actually sending pictures of his genitalia. That'll be useful in court. Thank you very much. And finally, I want to leave you with an Eric Bowling quote that he had said earlier, not related to this. He said, when the lights go down on my TV career, which might be very soon, Eric, the next step is running for Senate. Probably not. You might want to reconsider those plans. So, another Fox News anchor suspended for grotesque sexual harassment. Shocking, it turns out the stuff they say on air, they actually believe and practice off air. Okay. So, now we go to, speaking of sexual allegations, we're going to go to Ken Starr. Ken Starr is on TV, and he has the gall to talk about a prosecutor who might be overreaching. This is, of course, in reference to Mueller, who is a special counsel, as Ken Starr was investigating Whitewater, which, if you don't remember, was a real estate deal. And he's saying how Mueller might be overreaching going into Trump's finances. But if the finances are connected to Russia, that would be at the heart of the investigation. But that's okay, let's hear about it.
Now the question is, was there collusion with the Trump campaign? So if the investigation goes beyond the Russian mandate, and let's just say, well, let's just look into the financing of Trump Tower, but there's no Russian connection to it, then the argument is there, as I see it, right, that the investigation has gone too far.
Okay, wait a minute. So if they find out that he has financial deals with the Russians, and that allowed him to finance Trump Tower. For example, in a story we covered on the Young Turks, found out that 1/3 of the apartments in Trump Tower, when it first got up, and this is at the time when Donald Trump was in the middle of a bankruptcy and in massive trouble, were bought by the Russians. Now, if they're just innocent Russian citizens that would just coincidentally happen to buy 1/3 of the apartments in Trump Tower, well, okay, then it's not related. But if it has to do with money laundering, etc., then it might be enormously related. And by the way, you don't know until you investigate that. You can't assume that it was money laundering. You can't assume that it was some sort of illegal deal with the Russians. I wouldn't do that to Trump. You'd actually have to investigate to find out if it is or it isn't. And there's only one way to do that, is to do this investigation. And by the way, it is in his mandate. Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General that put Mueller into place in the first place, and said in his letter that Mueller could investigate any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation. So now, Ken Starr, who legendarily went above his mandate and went into Bill Clinton's sex life for reasons no one understands to this day, is going to say, well, hey, now be very careful about how far you go with this investigation. How he comes on TV and has the temerity to say this is, but it's amazing, and it's hard to understand. Except Republicans just don't care about the concept of hypocrisy. They have no issue with it at all. Anyway, I want you to watch it, and then I'm going to show you a series of pictures afterwards that might give you a sense of what Ken Starr actually did.
The mandate that Bob Mueller received has some broad language, including related to type language, which tends to open the door. But there are checks and balances. The president has said, here is the red line. I think that the gravamen of the original complaint was there collusion? To the extent that you're moving beyond collusion with Russian operatives or Russian interests or the Russian government itself, and into that which doesn't seem to have a direct tie to Russia, then these questions are in fact raised. And it becomes a litigable, as we say, question that people are going to squawk about it and disagree about it. I don't think that it is clear one way or the other, but I do think it is certainly a serious matter when a special counsel is accused, and I was accused of that, of exceeding his or her authority. That's a serious matter because we do not want investigators and prosecutors out on a fishing expedition.
Fishing expedition? Can't start talking about fishing expeditions. Hold on, I'm going to come back to that. But let's discuss some of the things he said earlier. The president's drawing a red line on investigating his finances. The president is the subject of the investigation. Why would the special counsel care what the subject of his investigation draws the red line? It's like a bank robber saying, hey, look, you can look into me mugging people or assaulting them, but I'm going to draw the red line on you investigating me robbing banks. And your opinion is relevant. Why? No, you don't get to set the parameters of what people investigating. You investigate. And then the idea that, let's say Robert Mueller finds that Trump is clearly, obviously, flagrantly in violation of money laundering scheme. What is he supposed to do? Okay, everybody go ahead and throw that in the garbage, bury it, don't give it to the press, don't give it to the authorities. It's beyond my mandate. I have clear evidence. He says it right here in the email. That's okay, burn it. No, of course you investigate that, because it came up in your investigation of Russia. If that's the case, let him do the investigation so we can all find out. And by the way, if Trump is really innocent, as he claims it is, now his supporters like Ken Starr are going out there defending him, well, then we'll find out that he's innocent. There'll be no smoking gun. You don't know, so let the guy do his job. Okay, now finally to the fishing expedition. Are you kidding me, Ken Starr? You guys remember what Ken Starr was actually picked to investigate? You might not. I mean, you hear the word whitewater every once in a while. Do you know what whitewater is? It's real estate in Arkansas. Here, we have a picture of it for you. This is what he was set to investigate. Did Bill Clinton have some sort of illegal or unethical or untoward deal relating to whitewater real estate in Arkansas? You know what the investigation showed? No, not at all. Not guilty. So I guess Ken Starr was done because he's not on a fishing expedition, right? He's done. Right? No, he wasn't done. He's like, I don't care. That was about real estate. You know who I'm going to investigate instead? This. Wait. And go to the next picture. Show me how whitewater real estate led to Monica Lewinsky's dress. Fishing expedition? We're talking about fishing expedition? You ran the most legendary fishing expedition in American history. And you have the gall to come on TV and go, well, let's make sure when Mueller's investigating many possible crimes by Trump, that there are certain crimes he should not investigate. That would be off limits. That would be exceeding your authority. You define exceeding your authority. And come on here and tell us that prosecutors shouldn't go on fishing expeditions. They just are not connected to the truth or reality or facts at all. They don't care. So they just go and brazenly say stuff like this on TV. Okay. I'm never going to let Ken Starr get away with that. Okay. Anyways. All right. Let's go to... by the way, to be fair to the CNN host, they did ask a follow-up question on it, so bless their hearts. A lot of times you don't get that, and that drives me crazy, but they did in this case. All right. Now, let's go to a story about Donald Trump and Afghanistan. Okay. So Donald Trump is in the middle of deliberating, if he can do such a thing, on the issue of Afghanistan. Now, I covered the story a little bit last week, too. I actually agree with him in part. And I think that he's asking legitimate questions. Hey, there it is, a little bit of agreement. Hold for the rest of the story, though. But first, let me give you the parts where I feel his pain. Greg Jaffe and Philip Rucker reporting for the Washington Post here, saying he wanted to know, Trump did, why the U.S. military wasn't winning in Afghanistan. And he asked repeatedly why, after more than 16 years of war, the United States was still stuck there. Hey, those are great questions, fair questions. H.R. McMaster is the person that he's talking to here. He's the National Security Advisor, and he's arranging these meetings, and he brings in generals, and they talk about their options in Afghanistan. They want to increase the amount of troops in Afghanistan, but Trump's asking a legitimate question about, wait, we've increased troops before and it hasn't worked. Why are we still not, still don't have the situation resolved after 16 years of war? And I told you last week that he was thinking of firing the general in charge there, then they had to talk him down on. I don't think that it's that particular general, I just think it's a bad concept. But now the issue gets a little bit more complicated. They explain, it also highlights a contradiction, this deliberation they're having about Afghanistan, highlights a contradiction at the core of Trump's foreign policy. On the campaign trail and in conversations with advisors, Trump has said he wants to win and project strength, but he has also called for ending costly commitments in places such as Afghanistan and the Middle East. Well, look, I actually think that doesn't have to be a contradiction. There's a thing in poker called a strong fold. So you can say, hey, this is my strong opinion that we're wasting our time in Afghanistan and, much more importantly, wasting the lives of our soldiers and the trillions of dollars that we have spent there. And the 16 years of war has been counterproductive. I am strongly exiting. I'm done with this. So, generals, I asked you for options. You didn't give me options that had any chance of success. We're leaving. So that is not a contradiction, and it drives me crazy when the press says, okay, strong is permanent war, and anything else is weak. No, that's not the case at all, and if Trump was bright, he could make that case. Unfortunately, this is where the story gets interesting, because President Trump is not that bright. So, not only can he not make that distinction, he wavers back and forth. Well, should we send in more troops? Because, then I get to beat my chest. And, on the other hand, it is a mess, and I was right about that. The generals aren't winning, but the guy reporting to me as National Security Advisor is a former general, and my defense secretary is a former general, and my chief of staff is a former general. The guy lives in a contradiction because he's not bright enough to figure out that those are contradictions. Okay, so the Washington Post talked to 20 different sources for this particular story. And now, when they get to the part about H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor's challenges in trying to explain the situation in Afghanistan to Trump, that's where it gets really interesting. They explain, among his biggest challenges was holding the attention of the president. In classified briefings, Trump would frequently flit between subjects. You're the president. Concentrate. Okay, let's get to the details. A U.S. official says, we move very quickly from news to intelligence to policy with very little clarity on which lanes we were in. That's Trump doing that. McMaster would act like the tangents didn't happen and go back to point 2 on his card. They're dealing with a child here, right? So McMaster's like, all right, here's option 1, and Trump's like, wow, did you see the rally I had? I mean, that was amazing. They loved me. And the crowd sizes of inauguration. And McMaster was like, very good. Option number 2 in Afghanistan is this. And he's like, oh, well, you should see what Fox and Friends said. Very good. Here's option 3. Right? And by the way, they do the same tricks, and they explain them here in the article as they have in all the other articles. You must show the president pictures, otherwise he can't concentrate. In the case of Afghanistan, they're showing him pictures from 1972 when women were wearing skirts. They're like, you see, Afghanistan used to be a different place, and we're trying to teach you the history of it. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's good, but back to Trump. And then the other thing that they do is they keep talking about him so that he'll pay attention. Oh, Jesus Christ, this guy's the most powerful guy on earth. It gets worse. Trump had little time for in-depth briefings on Afghanistan's history, its complicated politics, or its seemingly endless civil war. For God's sake, pay attention! Concentrate, you're the president. You need to know the historical context of Afghanistan if you're going to make the right decisions. Oh my God, oh, history, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. Believe it or not, it gets worse. Even a single page of bullet points on the country seemed to tax the president's attention span on the subject, said senior White House officials. They're not making this up. They have 20 sources. These are guys inside the White House going, he can't pay attention to a single page with bullet points. It's not even solid text. Bullet points, history, blah, 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 blah. Show me more pictures. And they would. They'd show them pictures of 2005 Afghanistan versus 2015. They're like, look, it's a marketplace. It's more crowded now. Isn't that progress? He's like, well, at least it's a picture. Now we go to a Trump confidant. Again, these are some of his friends. They say, I call the president the 2-minute man. Boy, that is not a good title. I don't think you want to be the 2-minute man under any context. But that's a Trump confidant saying he can't pay attention for longer than 2 minutes. God help us all. And finally, that same confidant said, the president has patience for half a page. Half a page, that's it. We thought we were down to a page filled with pictures and bullet points. Turns out we're down to half a page. Remember when preparing him to go to Europe, they were trying to teach him based on tweet-sized messages. They're like, we know he can concentrate for a tweet. So they're like, here's 140 characters. How are you going to explain the trading relationships we have with the G20 partners all across the world in tweet-sized information? How are you going to explain Afghanistan, its complexities, and make the right decisions on what to do when the president can't pay attention for longer than half a page? Republicans, if you care about the country, man, pick another guy who has all the things that you like, doesn't like immigrants, doesn't like Muslims, whatever it is that you think is somehow going to give you better health care, or you're incredibly rich and you want lower taxes, whatever it is that you want, pick another guy, because this guy's a child, and he's going to cause grave damage. In the case of Afghanistan, like I said, I'm not against him on the issue. For God's sake, pick the one where we leave. Pick that option. That's what you said on the campaign trail. Do that one, right? But when you have an issue like North Korea, and we're going to have to make a momentous decision, and we might go to war, and millions of lives might be on the line, you really want this guy making that decision? No, you don't. Not even if you're a Republican, you don't want that. And now there's other stories out. Famous backers like Peter Thiel, the legendary investor in San Francisco, who made a big speech at the convention backing Trump, now reconsidering their decision, going, the one word that defines his administration so far is incompetence. I told you. I told you during the campaign. I've been telling you that since. The guy is legendarily incompetent. And now even his backers are seeing that. He's a danger to the country and a danger to the world. Young Turks.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys? Okay.
Not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got him here.
You need more accessories. Way more accessories.
I don't know where to put them.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bay, not sleep bay.
More sexy, too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with?
No.
We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't for your gay audience, man.
Yeah, the gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do? You haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Yeah, that looks good on you, dude.
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do you have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink. Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles were doing well. I was in.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 10,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah 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 social issues. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, dab.
Okay,
Dab.
There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram. This is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it. So many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. So that's the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing
come
without
on.
us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here. Dude, just take off that shirt. That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
Hashtag Wolfbay.
Hashtag Wolfbay. Please follow me. Please.
Hey, Jack, what's up?
Aaron, did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it.
As you call me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
You said I had small hands. They're not small, huh? I never heard that one before.
Alright guys, we're back on the Young Turks. So let me read a couple tweets for you. Gabby Marita writes in, yeah, but how was Bowling's golden parachute? O'Reilly got $25 million. That's a great payday for being a sexual deviant. Rodriel's got a $40 million golden parachute. Isn't the life of the elite dandy that they allegedly, and in the case of Els and O'Reilly, certainly proven enough to get fired? In case of Bowling, proven enough to get a clear suspension, pulled off the air. His name's been taken off the show already for the moment being on social media. And they get $25 million for it, $40 million. Can you imagine if you did something wrong and then somebody gave you a $40 million check? Let alone something this outrageous. All right. The liberal mom says, blowjob for Clinton, impeach. Trump fucking the whole country with the help of the Russians. Don't go fishing. Okay. And it's funny how the guys who allegedly were so upset about Bill Clinton defiling the Oval Office with his oral sex shenanigans don't seem to mind Eric Bolling sending dick pics to the women that he works with, let alone Roger Ailes chasing them around the room with his penis out, let alone Bill O'Reilly doing phone sex with them that they did not ask for, involving loofahs and falafels. Okay, now let's go to important policy issues. Let's go to Trump administration doing some serious damage here. Okay. The Guardian has, in an exclusive, found a series of emails between the staff of the National Resources Conservation Service, that's a USDA unit that oversees farmers' land conservation. What do the emails show? Not good. And they explain, a missive from Bianca Movis-Clune, Director of Soil Health, lists terms that should be avoided by staff and those that should replace them. Now let me pause here to explain what political correctness is and the history behind it. So, it is not, if you find something offensive, that is not what political correctness is. It's often misused that way. It actually has a literal background, a historical background where it originated from. And some people say, oh, it was the Soviets who did it. Some say it was the Nazis who did it. It was actually both. The Soviets and the Nazis would send directives to their political operatives saying, whether something is factually correct is not important. It needs to be politically correct. You must use this kind of language when describing, in their case, the Jews or the pogroms, the famines, etc. They would say, don't call it a famine, call it something else, and that would be the politically correct term. So in this case here, we have the Trump administration telling scientists working at these organizations, you are not to use the factually correct words. You are to use the politically correct words. So let's give you the details. They explain in the emails, climate change is in the avoid category to be replaced by weather extremes. Instead of climate change adaptation, staff are asked to use resilience to weather extremes. And you see the Orwellian twist there too. It's no longer a problem. It's something that shows our resilience. Resilience to weather extremes. Well, doesn't that sound... Obama and other progressives, and they installed him, or they want to install him as the chief. About how, no, we're pro-science too. We're going to take a guy who's not even a scientist. In clear, obvious propaganda guy, make him the chief scientist. And we're going to tell them, no, political correctness is not an option anymore. It is mandatory. But go ahead and make our arguments for us. Pretend it's the liberals doing it. Now at least you know. So if you want to be a conservative, you want a Republican, you want to support Trump, have at it, Hoss. Just proudly declare who you are. You are in favor of political correctness, and don't ever complain about anybody else's political correctness again. And you're not for science. It's okay. Raise your hand and admit how stupid you are. No problem. Have pride in it. Tell us out and proud. Come out of the closet and tell us you don't believe in science. God bless. Just say it. Because that's what they're doing right here. Okay. These right-wingers, they have all these things. Oh, man. duplicitous ones are the interesting ones, especially Pence. Now, New York Times continues, most significant, multiple advisors to Mr. Pence have already intimated to party donors that he would plan to run if Mr. Trump did not. Now, to be fair, it's if Trump didn't, but boy, they're making a lot of plans. So they apparently don't have a lot of faith that either Trump's going to be in office at that time, or that he's going to be in good enough shape to even seek re-election, which is a very, very low bar. Okay. The vice president created his own political fundraising committee, Great America Committee, shrugging off warnings from some high-profile Republicans that it would create speculation about his intentions. The group, set up with the help of Jack Oliver, a former fundraiser for George W. Bush, has overshadowed Mr. Trump's own primary outside political group, America First Action, even raising more in disclosed donations. Yeah, you don't set up this committee and get all these folks if you're not interested in running, but I've got more. Mr. Pence has made no overt efforts to separate himself from the beleaguered president. He has kept up his relentless public praise, and even in private, is careful to bow to the president. Now, we showed you that in previous weeks. This is a very smart move by Mike Pence. Number one, you go both on TV, which Trump watches, and in person to Trump go, oh, Mr. President, I bow to you. Oh, you are so great, Mr. President. Me? Raise money behind your back and go to Iowa and go to these events and tell donors I might run? I would never do that. I bow to you, Mr. President. I bow to you. So he does that to keep his job. Well, that might not be in Trump's control anyway, but it's smart politically to do to keep the president happy. Plus, more importantly, he gets to turn around if something happens to Trump to all the Trump voters and go, I was behind your guy the whole time. Don't you remember me embarrassing myself on national TV going, oh, Mr. Trump, you are so right. It's been the greatest honor and privilege of my life to even be seated next to you. So it is crafty, but let's get you more details if you're not convinced. Mr. Pence also installed Nick Ayers, a sharp-elbowed political operative, as his new chief of staff last month. A striking departure from Vice President's long history of elevating a government veteran to be their top staff member. Mr. Ayers had worked on many campaigns, but never in the federal government. This thing's over. You don't hire a political operative who's never worked in the federal government if you're not interested in running a political race, let alone the fact that you made him your chief of staff. In other words, this is the only thing I care about. He's not alone, to be fair. Let's go to Nikki Haley. She's the ambassador to the United Nations and a former governor of South Carolina, and she put her longtime pollster on the payroll and has gotten better acquainted with some of New York's financiers, since the UN is in New York, and carved out a far more muscular foreign policy niche than Mr. Trump. Look, you can say, hey, Republican, she's going to go to meet with donors all the time, even though as UN ambassador, what do donors have to do with your job? I don't know. Okay, fine. But you hired a pollster. What are you polling? The opinions of Zimbabwe on our latest UN resolution? There's no reason for a political pollster to be on the staff of a UN ambassador. No, these people are brazenly going out there going, yeah, of course we're going to run when this schmuck implodes. I mean, turn on the TV. Can't you see with your own eyes? Man, this kind of insubordination is fascinating. And Trump usually hates this stuff. But again, you know why they do this so publicly and openly? Because they think he's too stupid to figure it out. And until the New York Times spelled it out for him, it was probably true. All right, of course Mike Pence is going to deny it, so here's his denials. He says, today's article in the New York Times is disgraceful and offensive to me, my family, and our entire team. Why do they always bring family into it? No, nobody talked about your family. Nobody cares what your wife is doing. Okay, but always like these guys, like, I'm a good Christian. So my family is offended that you pointed out how much money I've raised. Well, did you raise the money or didn't you? Finally, we go to that denial. The allegations in this article are categorically false and represent just the latest attempt by the media to divide this administration. And then he went on to call New York Times fake news. I know, Trump will give you a nice pat on the head for that. But which part is fake? Now, you can say, well, I didn't really say that to the donors, and my advisors didn't really say that to the donors, and that'll be hard to prove. It's a little he said, she said. But did you go to the donors? Yes. Did you raise more money than Trump's PAC and disclose donors? Yes. Did you go to all these events that look like campaign events? They went to the pig roast in Iowa. A big roast in Iowa? There's only one reason you go there. If you were planning to run for president. Was that false? No, not false. All that stuff is totally true. So if you think, no, Trump's fine, the media's making it all up, you should tell people in his administration and other Republican senators, because they don't think he's fine. They think he's already mortally wounded, and they're picking at his carcass. We'll be right back. Alright, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage broadly!
An amazing power panel.
Look at this battle! We'll talk about power!
It's like a smart Destiny Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution! Yes, another one! Aren't you excited?
Wow. Some of the best writers in the country are right here on this panel, with the obvious exception of John Irola.
Let's also quickly discount Harry Potter fanfiction.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country. What ran me away from Christianity was judgment and condemnation.
Assaulting peaceful protesters in North Dakota, crazier than bombing Yemen, crazier than bombing Syria so much they ran out of bombs.
What infuriates me is being around the country and seeing misery, corruption, and injustice everywhere. This reductive interpretation of what their motives are, what Putin's are, by these amateur experts.
We don't kill our journalists, and they do.
It's like it was in the 80s. It was in the now I know.
back on the Young Turks. Cenk Uger, two quick tweets for you guys. Cynthia Sorensen has an interesting idea. Snoop Dogg and Cenk 2020. All right, well, there it is. You're the first to suggest it, for better or for worse. Fake News USA .blog writes in, when all you do is campaign, you don't have time to govern, get money out of politics. Here on that. So that unfortunately applies equally to Republicans and Democrats. And one of the many reasons to get money out of politics, including, most importantly, corruption. But also, we elected you to do a job, and that wasn't to raise money to get reelected. It was actually govern. Okay, now, let's go to the next story. So John Kelly is the new chief of staff for Donald Trump. He replaced Reince Priebus, and the media was fawning over him. We covered it last week. Oh my God, the square-jawed general, and he's a man of great discipline, and he'll bring order to the White House, and he'll straighten them out and make sure Trump is on message. And I immediately said, no, he won't. It's not because he doesn't have a square jaw or that he isn't into discipline. It's that Trump is undisciplinable. Yes, that's a made-up word. Trump would enjoy it. So he's not going to listen to John Kelly. Did you know that before John Kelly became the chief of staff, he almost quit when Trump fired Comey? So he almost acts out of principle. Now, if he acts out of principle when he's the chief of staff, you think Trump's going to tolerate that? No, he's going to say, hey, you're supposed to be loyal to me. How come you're not being loyal, John? All right, so now let me remind you of what they said about John Kelly when he first came in. New York Times says, Mr. Kelly cuts off rambling advisors on mid-sentence. He listens in on conversations between cabinet secretaries and the president. He has booted lingering staff members out of high-level meetings and ordered the doors of the Oval Office closed to discourage strays. Oh, there you go. He comes in right there, discipline, okay? Bloomberg says, while Kelly isn't vetting every presidential tweet, Trump has shown a willingness to consult with his chief of staff before hitting send on certain missives that might cause an international uproar or lead to unwelcome distractions. According to 3 people familiar with interactions, Kelly has been, quote, offering a different way to say the same thing, one person said. I read that and thought, no, that's not going to work. And, of course, today we get this tweet from Tara Palmieri, from White House correspondent for Politico. I was told Kelly's accepted that he will not have control over tweets. No one controls Trump's Twitter. Of course. And yesterday, Trump was wildly tweeting about Senator Richard Blumenthal and getting himself in all sorts of trouble with veteran groups. You think I don't care how square his jaw is. No one can get Trump to put down his tweets. Of course he's going to send them out because he's a child. You're misunderstanding the situation. He doesn't have the intellectual capacity or self-control to be guided, even if John Kelly was a person who could guide him in the right direction and was great at guiding people. It doesn't matter because the guy he's reporting to is the problem. So yes, tweets galore. This whole idea that Kelly's going to get him under control, totally a myth. Was never going to happen and has already now been flushed down the toilet. So I asked you guys this question. Poll on tytnetwork.com/Kelly. Will Trump eventually fire John Kelly? Now, again, last week, if you asked all the mainstream media, the guys on TV, the guys on New York Times and everyone else, no, John Kelly's got this thing figured out. Everything's going to be all right going forward. No. Like I said about George W. Bush when he was down in the polls and people said, oh, no, he's going to make a comeback. I said he doesn't have the capacity for a comeback, and it turned out to be true. All that happened was George Bush's ratings continued to slide down for the last couple of years of his administration. The same is true of Donald Trump, and worse. No, eventually John Kelly will do something that makes sense, and Trump will get angry at him and fire him. So, remember, Trump still thinks he's on Apprentice and has to fire at least one person every week. All right, now, let's go to those tweets that I was telling you about. Senator Richard Blumenthal was on TV, and he was talking about the Russian investigation, and, of course, Trump was beside himself with anger. Turns out that Trump was watching TV. No. First, let me show you what Blumenthal said.
the Russia investigation, the impanelment of the grand jury, shows that Bob Mueller is pursuing this potential wrongdoing by the Russians, the attack on our democracy, seriously and diligently. And there is no minimizing or underestimating that attack by the Russians. It was purposeful and relentless, and it involved propaganda and hacking into our voting machines, or at least an attempt to do it, and potential collusion by the Trump campaign, and then obstruction of justice. That investigation must be pursued.
Now, it's a very normal thing to say on cable news. They talk about Russia all the time. He's talking about Mueller, who's doing an investigation. Makes sense, right? And he's a Democratic senator. So nothing here is surprising. But Trump, of course, can't stand any criticism. John Kelly, his chief of staff, was supposed to get him under control. He ain't under control. So he grabs a Twitter machine and starts to tweet out. And so he says this: interesting to watch Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut talking about hoax Russian collusion when he was a phony Vietnam con artist. Now, wait a minute. I'm going to get into his Vietnam record in a second, but what does that have to do anything with the Russia investigation? Nothing at all. Just back to bully Donald Trump. Oh, yeah? Lying Ted. Crooked Hillary. Dude, Blumenthal didn't go to Vietnam. Right. So he continues. Never in U.S. history has anyone lied or defrauded voters like Senator Richard Blumenthal. Well, there might be one exception. Just look at that picture up there. Anyway, he told stories about his Vietnam battles and conquests, how brave he was, and it was all a lie. He cried like a baby and begged for forgiveness like a child. Now he judges collusion. Again, collusion and Vietnam have nothing to do with one another. Second of all, he didn't cry like a baby. And this is the president saying these outrageous, insane things, accusing senators of crying like babies. All right, let's go to the truth now. Now, Raw Story explains, while Blumenthal has publicly apologized for claiming that he served in Vietnam, he did actually enlist in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, where he served from 1970 to 1976. So, look, you want to blame Blumenthal for being a cheesy politician who lied about actually going to Vietnam fight. But he is definitely a veteran. He's a Marine, and no one disputes that, okay? So, now for a second, let's turn to Trump's military record, find out what happened there. Trump, meanwhile, was granted 4 deferments on the draft while he was studying at Fordham University and the University of Pennsylvania, and then was subsequently medically disqualified during an armed forces physical examination for supposed bone spurs in his feet, although no records exist to verify this claim. And of course, he famously, during the campaign, when asked which foot had a bone spur, couldn't remember, and said, maybe both. He didn't have no bone spur. He didn't want to go to Vietnam. Now he criticizes actual veterans. So veterans on Twitter stepped in and were quite enraged about this. We have some fun tweets. Robert Guglielmi says, you, Mr. President, have absolutely no right to criticize anyone who served. Won't be silenced, says Draft Dodger says what? Vets Against Trump says, 5 draft deferments, using your wealth and privilege to avoid fighting while others less elite were drafted. Hashtag Vets Against Trump. And then Tully Mox was a little bit more blunt. I'm a veteran, you chicken hawk piece of trash. You have no room to talk. The only service you had was avoiding STDs. Now, if you're wondering what they're referring to there, well, I have the quotes for you. So when talking to Howard Stern throughout the years, Donald Trump has said, you know, if you're young and in this era, and if you have any guilt about not having gone to Vietnam, we have our own Vietnam. It's called the dating game. Dating is like being in Vietnam. You're the equivalent of a soldier going over to Vietnam. Because he was worried about the STDs while dating. Now, I didn't go to Vietnam. I'm too young. And I don't make claims about whether I would have gone or not gone, etc. I have the decency to not insult the veterans who went to Vietnam. Now, whether it was a war that was wrong or not, they risked their lives. They went through hell there. And this guy flippantly talks about, when I was dating all those women because I'm really rich, avoiding the sexually transmitted diseases was like going to Vietnam. No, it wasn't. I can assure you it really, really wasn't. He's not done. He had one more quote on that. He said, it's amazing about, again, avoiding STDs. I can't even believe it. I've been so lucky in terms of that whole world. It is a dangerous world out there. It's like Vietnam, sort of. It's my personal Vietnam. I feel like a great and very brave soldier. So that's Donald Trump and his service to the country. And he has the temerity to attack a guy who served as a Marine for 6 years. And now when people called him out, hey, stop watching TV and sending these insane tweets. He then tweets, the White House is functioning perfectly, focused on healthcare, tax cuts, reform, and many other things. I have very little time for watching TV. Okay, are you ready for this? John Berman from CNN said, for what it's worth, we were talking about this subject on TV just before the tweet. In other words, he watches them talking on TV about how he watches too much TV and sends a tweet immediately going, I'm not watching TV. The guy is a pathological liar. And in his own words, sad baby. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, amazing facts, including Americans having less sex. Let's try to find out why. Apparently significantly so. That is a disaster for our country. And then there's the scientists are trying to find a gene that might determine if you're transgender. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? And there's a stat about transgender folks there that is stunning. That's coming up in the second hour. We'll see you there.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited.
Did anybody call for it? Editor.
Need this in an hour. Shared editor too. Fuck you.
Whoa, Nelly, let me tell you about Aspiration.com. So they're a sponsor of ours. I love it because we're trying to find sponsors that match us and you guys, and they're perfect for that. They're progressive, they're a financial firm, and if you're tired of all those banks, it's time to debank and go to a financial firm like Aspiration.com. You're asking, hey, Jake, why is that? Well, don't worry, I'm about to tell you. Okay, 100% fossil fuel-free banking investment, so hashtag no dabble. So if you're worried about your bank doing that, they don't do that at all. This is amazing. Everybody I tell this to, they're like, no. Up to 1% annual interest on your checking account.
How's that possible? I don't know, but sold.
Hey, Aspiration.com, that's why they have a...
You can't even get a CD, okay? Certificate of deposit. You can't even get a certificate of deposit with an interest rate like that.
I know. I was talking to my dad about it. I think you should go. Okay, that's why they have a wait list.
Yeah.
You can skip the wait list. I know, we're a little exclusive here. Now, all of a sudden, the TYT audience is going to leave. You can go to the head of the line by going to aspiration.com/TYT. You don't have to wait on the wait list. There's free access to ATMs all across the world. There's no monthly service fee. I know, it just gets better. But 10% of their revenue goes to charity. I mean, it doesn't get any more live than this. And no funding of political campaigns or industry lobbying. So if you were looking for a progressive place to put your money, I think we've got your answer for you, aspiration.com.
Hey, Jake, what's up?
And my VCR keeps flashing 12, but it's not even midnight. Go.
I got a hot dog, ketchup, and some Jello, please. Hey, you know what I'm right beside you this morning.
Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, and the professor here with you, Anna Kasparian.
Hey.
Now, if you're watching on YouTube, if you use a super chat, one, you help and support the show. Two, we read some of your comments from there. And the story of Ameno wrote in, much love for TYT and their information. And then put an emoji of a heart, and it said, love Casper.
Oh, I read that one before. I read it on Friday. I know. I like it.
I had an Uber driver who insisted that I tell you that he loves you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's nice.
That's nice.
That is nice. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not every day that I get love. In fact, most days it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, he's like, oh, hey, Cenk from the Young Turks, that's so cool. Anyway, let's talk about Anna. And I was like, okay. All right, so the Forgotten Arm tweets in, Pence is basically Littlefinger, hoping in all the chaos he'll get the throne, except Trump will burn everything down before he leaves. That's an excellent analogy, and very likely to be true, unfortunately. Dimesh says, is there a list of #TYT Live polls on TYTnetwork.com? There should be. I always forget the link. LOL. Well, LOL right back at you, Dimesh. That's an excellent point. I don't think there is. We'll work on it. Well, today's poll on whether John Kelly is going to be fired, even though he just came in, is TYTnetwork.com/Kelly. And then finally, Josh Lasagna says, random note for Cenk, can you do like a Bitsy or something talking about Game of Thrones episodes, season 7, episode 4, for members? Hope you see this. Bitsy is my behind the scenes that I shoot from time to time.
Okay, I'm like, what is Bitsy?
BTS, behind the scenes,
right,
and I call it Bitsy.
Yeah.
So whenever I do one and I'm like high or whatever, I'm like, hey Bitsy, how you doing? So look, in today's post game, I want to talk about two things. One of them will be Game of Thrones, the very ending. Did you see it?
Of course I did. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that'll be fun. So ask and you shall receive, if you remember, and also Peter Thiel bailing on Donald Trump. That's a really interesting story where the rich donors are like, we're done with this guy.
Yeah.
So let's do that in the post game. That's for the members. To become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. Okay? All right, Casper, what's next?
All right. An Islamic center in suburban Minneapolis was targeted with explosives. Luckily, no one has died as a result. And no one was hurt. However, this is the culmination of a number of threats that was sent not just to this Islamic center, but to a number of Islamic centers in the area. And, because there's a big Somali community living in that area, some are worried that this will now become commonplace. Now, no one was hurt in the blast, which happened around 5 in the morning on Saturday. Windows of the imam's office were shattered, either by what the FBI called an improvised explosive device or by an object thrown through them. The FBI is seeking suspects and trying to determine whether the incident was a hate crime. Now, as far as we know, they have not identified a suspect. They are offering a $24,000 reward for anyone who has information on this. Also in Minnesota, an Islamic cemetery in Castle Rock Township recently reported it had been vandalized with spray-painted profanities and swastikas. And, usually when stories like this break and make headlines, people don't refer to it as a hate crime or a terroristic act. But surprisingly, the governor did speak out about this, and he said this is an act of terrorism. This is against the law in America.
Look, Mark Dayton is a really interesting and successful governor in Minnesota, and it's clear. It's good to see him being very clear about this. But even that sentence shows, and it's not a knock on him, but it shows our mindset as a country. This is against the law in America. You have to clarify that. Like, if there was a Muslim terrorist had done a bombing of a church, no one would have to refresh your recollection that that's against the law in America. And again, it's not a knock on him. He's trying to do the right thing here, and everybody's doing the right thing. And look, they didn't call it a hate crime yet. That's okay. That's totally fine because you got to investigate first. And so sometimes it turns out that it's somebody internal that does it for attention, or it was personal and not having anything to do with the religion. Now, it's unlikely, but it is possible. So let them do the investigation. Now, what is far more likely is, of course, that it was directed at Muslims because of the climate of fear and hatred that's going around. And look, there's layers to different kinds of intimidation or hate crime. So calling up and saying, I'm going to kill you all, that unfortunately happens far too frequently, especially online with comments, etc. So that used to be a serious thing, but now is kind of commonplace, which is a terrible note on our society. Then there's the going after the graveyards. Now, maybe it's because I'm agnostic. I don't care that much, but the swastikas are terrible, etc. That's a second layer that's actually taking some physical action and deeply concerning. A bomb is a bomb. I mean, so what you have, it reminded me of the bombings of black churches that used to happen during the Civil Rights era. In Birmingham, you have the 16th Street Baptist Church bomb went off. Sometimes the bombs go off and nobody dies in this case. And so then people are like, oh, it's not a big deal. No, it's a giant deal. And when it went off in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, 4 little girls died. And you don't know, I mean, like, you could time the bomb to go off at a certain time, and it doesn't go off at that time, it goes off at another time. So this is a giant deal. And if it happened under a different context, it wouldn't just be like us going, hey, look at Governor Dayton calling it an act of terrorism. CNN, if it was, again, a Muslims versus against a church, would be talking about it 24/7, and you know it. It doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. You know this would be a giant event. Trump would have tweeted about it endlessly. He said, oh, I'm right about the Muslims. I told you, etc. Well, but when Muslims are attacked, it's like, hey, somebody called it an act of terrorism when a bomb went off. Oh, which is, of course.
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest issue is, look, there are bad people from all walks of life, and they're out to hurt people, and there should be a proper investigation, and each crime should be handled with the same type of legal weight, right? And so I know that the perception in the media is that it's only one group doing all the bad things. But yeah, while there might be members of that group who do carry out acts of terror, and they should deal with the justice system to the full extent of the law, there are also individuals who don't identify as Muslims that do terrible things, right? And so this is an example of a terrible thing. That, person who shot up people at a Planned Parenthood, what was it, last year or 2 years ago? That was a big story, right? And it shows you that there are people who are politically motivated. Now, in this case, we don't know for sure. They're still doing an investigation. But in past cases, there are individuals who are not Muslim, who are politically motivated, who do carry out terroristic actions. And so look, my point is, I'm not sitting here trying to say, like, no, Muslims are good and these people are bad. No, they're, again, bad people from all walks of life, and we need to stop pretending like one group doesn't do anything wrong and then one group is always guilty of doing terrible things. I mean, we just need to make sure we protect our citizens by carrying out justice for all groups of people who carry out terroristic threats, terroristic actions like what happened here. Possibly.
And again, the governor called it an act of terrorism, so he apparently has enough information to say that it is in that direction. That is what has happened here. We'll, of course, pending the full investigation, could give you an update on it. The last thing is what Anna's pointing at. If right-wing extremists do literally twice as much terrorism in America as Muslim extremists.
They carry out twice as many because there isn't as much focus on right-wing terrorism in the country. And so when it comes to foiling terroristic plots, law enforcement in the United States is really good at foiling terroristic plots that are attempted by Muslim groups, for instance. But when it comes to other non-Muslim right-wing organizations or groups, it's not the same because there isn't as much attention paid to that.
So my point is that not that it's, look, if you look at the proportionality based on the percentage of the population, that's still not great news for Muslims overall. But you're apparently misallocating resources, and by the way, great credit to the FBI and others who are foiling those plots, that keeps us safer. I don't want anything blown up at all. I live in this country. We all live in this country. We all want to be safe. But if right-wingers are doing it at a 2-to-1 ratio, it's not to say do the same mistake and investigate all right-wingers. That'd be a tremendous waste of time and resources. But make sure you've got enough people foiling those plots, because as a raw number, there are twice as many of them, hence endangering all of us twice as much. So let's just put enough resources behind each of those different groups that are doing these kind of terroristic activities as we likely see here in Minnesota.
Yep. All right, let's take a really short break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about gun sales under Trump versus Obama. The numbers are pretty amazing. And then later on, we're going to talk about sea fleas. You don't want to miss it.
Oh yeah, the sea fleas are a disaster. I mean, I know we're gonna like ruin your trips to the sea, but to the sea, whatever the sea is. Anyway, but you gotta hear this thing. I didn't know what it was, and it's bananas.
Yes,
bananas when we return.
Hey, Jen, what's up?
Aaron, I forgot my email password. What is it?
EASSWORD.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody. I am your host, Francis Maxwell. Jason here. Welcome to TYT Sports. Turks and Jerks. TYT Sports. Steph Curry signed with Under Armour. Tom Brady's mad, by the way. Can you hear me? Fight on TYT Sports. Actually, there's a link in the description box below instead of lying about the description box below. And it's a throw another picture of the UK bacon. And another. Then it's like throwing another one. You're really
All right, back on the Young Turks. D-More315 writes in, Sea Fleas, somebody's got to tell Iderola just for fun and to mess with him. Oh, poor guy, don't do that.
Aww. He looks like he's having a good time, though. He's posting pictures with, like, really cute dogs and stuff.
That's why I like Instagram.
Yeah.
Because then I can follow along,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, follow Johnny Pie on Instagram, whatever the hell his account is. I already
It's just
forgot.
John Iderola.
Oh, it's probably John Iderola. Good luck trying to spell it. Anyway, we sent him to the North Pole. See if he finds Santa. Okay. Member shout-outs today are Andrew Ferguson and Angela Stevens. So if you become a member, we also shout out your name at some point. So today we're going to discuss a little bit of Game of Thrones episode 4. More importantly, rich Republican donors turning on Trump. That's fascinating. And later in the week, I think we're going to discuss the Democratic Civil War. Drums indeed. All right,
Yeah.
What's next, Anna?
All right. Now that Donald Trump is the president, how is the gun industry responding? Well, there has been a difference in the number of sales for the gun industry, and the difference is pretty stark. So, according to reports, shares of gun maker Sturm, Ruger and Company, or RGR, were down as much as 9% after reporting results Wednesday afternoon that missed expectations. In the second quarter, sales for the company were down 22% against the same period last year, while profits fell a total of 53%. So, when Democrats are in office, it's actually really great business for gun manufacturers because there is this fear of gun regulation, gun control. Even though that regulation never really happens, people freak out, and since they're worried about it, they'll go out and they'll buy guns and they'll stockpile. Now, there has been decreased overall consumer demand in 2017 due to stronger than normal demand during most of 2016, likely bolstered by the political campaigns for the November 2016 elections. And that's based on a statement by a gun manufacturer. So they're very well aware that Republicans are not necessarily good for business.
Let me just pause there for a second. So it's not only because they're not as afraid under Trump that their guns are going to get taken away, but also during the election, that's when they were doing all the propaganda. If Hillary wins, she's going to take your guns away. And people panicked and stockpiled.
Right.
Which then means, by the way, they also have less money to buy more guns now, and they already bought a lot of their guns. So that's another reason why sales are going down.
So what I was curious about, because keep in mind, the NRA endorses politicians. They endorse Donald Trump. And the NRA is also very closely tied to these gun manufacturers. Gun manufacturers fund the NRA, which is why it's such a powerful lobbying group. So I was curious to see what they do to make up for sluggish sales, right? And this quote kind of gives you a sense of, what their mentality is and what their marketing strategy is. Now, they say, this is based on the CEO of RGR. He says, you've got more new shooters coming along. All that stuff drives demand. And in some municipalities, you have the cops backing off. They're being seen by the media too often as the enemy. And so they're backing off, and crime rates in those cities are soaring through the roof. Those people could care less who's president. They want to defend themselves. And so, it's this cycle of paranoia, right? More paranoia leads to more people buying guns. More guns lead to more violence, leads to more cops feeling paranoid, and it's justified. If you know that there's a bunch of people out there who are armed, you're going to feel paranoid. It's a vicious cycle, and it's just so fascinating to see it work.
And it's fascinating for him to admit it, because he's talking about his business. He's only talking about it in a financial concept, but if you break it down into human terms, it's incredibly gross. He's saying basically, look, the cops are afraid, this is part of the phenomenon, the cops are afraid that you've got a gun, because everybody's got a gun, so they're more likely to shoot. That makes people say, hey, back off to the cops, and he then claims in a conservative kind of way that now crime is running rampant because of that. There's actually no proof of that. And that makes everybody else nervous, and that's a bad thing for us, but he's like, that's a good news for us because it drives demand, as long as everybody's afraid. But the first part of the sentence is even more important. When he said you've got new shooters coming along, all that stuff drives demand. So what we see to be a vicious cycle, new shooters that then people get worried and they grab their guns or buy new guns, and then there's more shootings because of that, which then makes people more paranoid. If you're a gun maker, that's not a vicious cycle. That's a virtuous cycle. That leads to more and more profits.
Right.
We die, they make more money. And that's the CEO basically admitting that, saying for their business, that's good news. And that right now, they're having a little bit of a problem, though. They're like, shooters are on their way. Every day there's going to be a new mass shooting. Last year there was almost literally one mass shooting where 4 people are shot every single day, okay, on average. Now, on the other hand, they're like, oh, when the Democrats are in office, it's great. We can pretend that they're going to take your guns away. It's never happened. They've never proposed it. But it doesn't matter. We have people who are scared out of their minds. That's our business model.
Well,
and it allows us to scare them better.
To be fair, Democrats kind of propose gun legislation, right?
No,
but they do
no,
so
never
in the
to take
weakest
your
way.
guns away.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
No, it's the mildest legislation. By the way, legislation that an overwhelming majority of gun owners agree with.
Right.
Saying, hey, you got to close the loopholes so that we at least know who bought the gun, so that if you kill somebody,
right,
we know who killed them or have a better chance of figuring it out. So the gun, or I think it's like 73% of NRA members agree with the legislation that was proposed by the Democrats during Obama. But NRA gets most of their funding from
gun manufacturers.
So they're like, no, we want you to be paranoid. We don't want you to figure out the crime. Crime leads to more paranoia, which leads to more gun sales to defend yourselves. They don't actually have a problem with crime.
Look, what I'm curious about is, you just mentioned how even the majority of NRA members are in favor of closing the loopholes to ensure that the bad guys don't get access to guns. What I'm curious about, though, is how come every time there is any type of debate or discussion about gun regulation, it immediately devolves into 2 insanely polarized groups that refuse to see the perspectives of one another. So I'm not in favor of banning guns, right? I think that I have a pretty common sense approach when it comes to gun legislation. I'm in favor of the background checks. I'm in favor of closing things like gun show loopholes, where you go to a gun show and you can buy guns from the back of someone's truck. But at the same time, I'm also very well aware of how the NRA is funded, how the NRA is corrupted by gun manufacturers, how it all really has to do with profit. And so for people who are hardcore gun advocates, are you at least able to acknowledge that, right?
I think that 27% is... It's not like they disagree a little bit. They're super fervent, and they've been riled up into this fear and paranoia for the profit of others. And they think, no, they're gonna take it. I don't care anything. They say slippery slope. If you propose legislation where you know who bought the gun and that they're not mentally deranged or a felon, well, that will lead to, and if you have a terrorist watch list, and we don't let terrorists buy guns, next thing you know, we won't let citizens buy guns. Now, of course, they never heard that slippery slope slides both ways. So then you can make more and more extreme examples. Well, if we let people on the terrorist watch list buy guns, which, by the way, they say, no, did you know that 3% of the people on that list are not necessarily terrorists? Do the math on that. Okay, so now you can have other problems with that watch list, but that's pretty extreme already. You're already at the end of a slope. But then you can say, then well, should we let people on the terrorist watch list buy bazookas, RPGs, landmines, tanks, nukes? The slippery slope slides both ways. But they don't hear that. They hear, oh no, they're coming to get me! And the reason they think that is because there was a sophisticated propaganda campaign done to drive gun sales. They did it on purpose to maximize profit, which is logical. But you should know why they did it so that you know what's real and not real.
Right.
But I do enjoy the irony of the NRA and all those guys supporting Republicans and finding out, oops, when Republicans are in office, we don't sell as many guns. Looks like they shot themselves in the foot.
All right. Let's move on to super interesting story in the celebrity world having to do with sexual assault. A trial by jury involving Taylor Swift began today, and it's all over an alleged sexual assault that she claims to be the victim of. Now, this took place a couple of years ago, and it involved a DJ by the name of David Jackson Mueller. He allegedly lifted her skirt and grabbed her butt while they were taking a photo. She accused him of doing so to his employer, and the employer ended up firing him. Now, she never reported it to the authorities. However, he is now claiming that it was a completely false accusation and it completely destroyed his career, and so he is suing her, and she is countersuing him to fight back. So let me give you some details on this case. It was ignited in 2015 when the music jockey David Jackson Mueller sued Swift, blaming her for damaging his reputation and for the loss of his $150,000 a year job at radio station KYGO after she brought the groping allegations to his employer. Now, what's interesting about this is, you know, there was evidence that he accidentally destroyed, and so that's not going to look good in this case. And also, because of the nature of this case, the burden of proof is not as serious as it would be if it were, let's say, a murder case, right? So the burden of proof for jurors in a civil trial does not have to meet the same beyond a reasonable doubt threshold as they would in a criminal case. So federal civil cases have a much lower threshold of proof in that juries must only be convinced by a preponderance of the evidence in order for one side to prevail. So one piece of evidence is the photo that we just showed you, which features him with Taylor Swift. Now, it looks like his hand is on her butt, but it's obviously not definitive proof. She also claimed that he lifted her skirt. You can't really tell from that photo, but that will be evidence that will be shown. He will testify during this case. She will also testify during this case. And then the fact that he accidentally destroyed evidence in the form of a laptop computer will probably also be brought up, and it's not going to look good for him.
Okay, I want to get into that more because that's the most interesting part. Okay, so now she's not alleging that he grazed her butt or that he even grabbed her butt. He lifted up the skirt, according to her allegations, and put his hand on her bare butt. So that's not a thing that you mistake. You know, that's not like, oops, he claims maybe his hand slipped in the photo and it's not necessarily on her butt, etc. Okay? Now, point one is, what is Taylor Swift's motivation in making it up? So she's incredibly famous. She's already incredibly rich. The only thing this can do is get people mad at her, get into these kind of lawsuits, etc. Now, that's not definitive. That doesn't mean she's definitely telling the truth. It's a data point, and it's a very important one.
Right.
Okay. Now, look, you can take a look at the picture. Let's look at it one more time, and you can look here and say, you know, maybe his hand did slip. Maybe it's not on her butt, right? It looks like there, but it's, you know, that he could turn around and go, it doesn't look like I lifted it. Here, show the picture again, picture 11. It doesn't look like I lifted up her skirt in this picture. That's outrageous. And so that's an interesting piece of evidence. But so as I'm reading all these different things, I go, it'll be interesting to see who wins. And as Anna pointed out, in a criminal trial, beyond a reasonable doubt, roughly they explain in law school, is you got to be 98% certain the guy did it. Because you're going to take his liberty away, sometimes you're going to take his life away, etc. In a civil trial, you're just trying to determine who's more likely to be right. So it's basically 51%. So if you think that person's slightly more likely to be right. So keep that in mind. So now we have the two different stories. And when it comes to, well, this guy got fired, he actually got fired not just for possibly grabbing her ass, but his employers determined that he was lying to them.
Right. So let me give you, the statement. So executives determined he had lied about the incident and changed his story. That's according to court documents. So his employers asked him about it several times. Apparently he changed his story while talking to them about it, and then they just finally decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and fire you.
Okay, so here's the part that if I was on the jury, I'd be pretty clear which direction I was going to go. So, they asked Mueller, okay, you say that you've got this conversation with your employers and that's evidence that's on your side. So bring that in. And he says, oh, man, I spilled coffee on my laptop. And so it had a 2-hour audio file of his phone call, by the way, again, with his employers. So the laptop's gone. I spilled coffee.
Right.
You can say, well, that sounds fishy, but maybe, people do spill coffee. Does it really destroy the laptop and you have to throw it away? But okay. Then they say, well, okay, we've got an external hard drive, and that has the copy. He said, the external hard drive just, quote, stopped working. Yeah, that happens all the time. Okay, so let me get this right. The spilled coffee plus the other hard drive just stopped working. They're like, that's okay. You had a cell phone that you used to record the call. Bring in your cell phone. Say, as luck would have it, I threw out that cell phone. Really? You just threw out the cell phone? So that's 3 things that had the recording of you potentially lying or maybe admitting what you did to your employers, and they all just happen to have coffee and stop working and throw it away. I think, given that evidence, it seems pretty clear which way this is going to come out.
Yeah.
So, look, I know what he's thinking. There's a big payday here. I'm suing her for $3 million, and he did get fired, and his career is screwed. Maybe next time you shouldn't grab anybody's ass, let alone a powerful celebrity who can easily say, you grabbed my ass, and then that's not going to work out well for you if you're a DJ, right?
Yeah.
And so I like that Taylor Swift is putting her, look, it's in the middle of a controversy. It's never good, right? And she's got to go testify, and now a quarter of the internet will hate her forever because, oh, yeah, you're always making it up, man. No way. It's true. I spill coffee all over evidence all the time. 3 different times in a row, and then I throw it away. It's Taylor Swift's fault. She's a woman. Okay.
Yeah. So
she's going to go through all that crap.
Yep.
But she's at least fighting to say, no more. We're not going to just let you do this anymore and get away with it. You're going to sue me. I'm going to counter-sue you. And I think, given the evidence, he's probably in a world of trouble.
What's incredible to me is if he did do it and they do find him guilty, wow, like how brazen is that? Because the other woman in the photo is apparently his girlfriend, right? And not only that, even if it was just him and Taylor Swift in that photo, the fact that if he did it, felt comfortable lifting her skirt and grabbing her butt like that.
Yeah, that is unreal, man.
That is pretty unreal.
I don't know. Every day we do a show, every day there's more unreal stuff. Bowling with sending his dick pics when you're on national TV, that's insane! Let alone, you should never do it. But how do they... And you know why? I bet you, bowling, at Fox News, they did that stuff all the time. Nobody ever got called out on it.
Yeah.
There were consequences. Cops do the shootings, no consequences. And that guy's probably grabbed, I don't know how many asses he's grabbed, right?
If he did it, there's no way that was the first time. I mean, if he felt that
know
comfortable
that did it to brag to his buddies, I did this and this. So, anyway, I'll wait for his book. If I did grab Taylor Swift's ass, here's how I did it.
All right.
Okay, all right. Let's go.
Researchers have noticed that there has been a drop in sexual activity among couples today, and they did find out this information through a number of surveys dating back to 1989. Now, they looked at surveys from not only 1989, but 1989 through 2014, and based on the responses in those surveys, they found that people just aren't having as much sex as they used to. Okay? So they did find an overall drop in sexual activity across race, gender, region, work status, and education level. And keep in mind that in terms of finding reasons for why there's been a drop in sexual activity, they did control for pornography. So oftentimes people will be like, oh, it's because we're all watching pornography. But that is not one of the reasons why this is happening.
I don't really believe that.
They say, okay. So let's get into the methodology just a little bit. So the paper used data from the National General Social Survey, GSS, between the years 1989 and 2014, and discovered that adults on an average had sex about 9 fewer times per year in the early 2010s compared to what they did in the late 1990s. So it's not that much of a drop, right?
Yeah, 9 times. Depends on how you view it.
I guess, yeah. All right. So here's what they found. There are a number of different factors that could be playing a role, right? And so JR usually jumps in and says, we're all zapped, right? There's this phenomenon in Japan where people are not interested in relationships or having sex with one another, and some think, okay, it might have to do with technology, but there are other factors. A lot of parents feel like, this is according to one of the researchers, a lot of parents feel like they've already done about 50 things they didn't want to do that day, like getting up at dawn, dealing with their child's tantrums. Adding sex to the menu just seems like too much. So we turn to things like Netflix to unwind, which leads to immediate gratification with zero energy expended.
But you can see where her proclivities are, because she's like, after I did 50 things, I'm going to have to do that too. Well, if you liked it, it might not seem like, now I got to have sex. Now I got to go and have an orgasm on top of all the other things I did today.
I know, but here's the thing. I think most people, not everyone, but I think most people do enjoy sex. Mm-hmm. But it is work, right? And I think the hardest part is, like, convincing yourself to get started, right? Like, you're tired. Mm-hmm. And you just don't want to get started. It's like going to the gym. Like, it feels really good when you're there. It feels really good when you're done, right? But it doesn't feel good when you're thinking about it, when you have to get ready for it.
There might be difference of opinion on that. I think guys think it feels pretty good thinking about it. Okay. No, but I know exactly what you're saying. Right? Yeah. I do. Now, look, this article started great. It's from the IB Times. I was surprised to find out that they talk about things other than David Sirota articles about corruption.
Or other than crapping on millennials, which is something that they're really
That's a totally different thing. Yeah, but I like Sirota's piece. Anyway, so it started out good because they said, people are having less sex than they were 20 years ago. And I've always been bitter that I caught a bad time in history, right? AIDS was around, and like I missed the 1960s where everybody's like, screw it, Woodstock, let's just have sex, right? I missed today's Tinder thing, and I was feeling kind of bitter about it. I'm like, you guys are having less sex now. Boom! Yes, what now, right? And then they clarified, no, it's mainly for people who are married. Oh, no, another elbow on my head. It turns out it's the exact opposite. It's not mainly single people. It is for married couples.
Right.
Okay? So that means in order to make up for the singles that are actually having just as much, if not more sex, the married couples are having even less sex. So skewing the average down.
That's the crazy part. So conventional wisdom is you get married and then you have less sex anyway, but it's even less than what you would expect, right?
It's a low bar, dude.
Okay. So let me give you some more reasons that individuals not necessarily tied to this research have suggested. So one sexuality counselor says, we're seeing more helicopter parenting, which is zapping energy that could go towards sex and other sensual activities.
Yeah. So I'm not buying any of their explanations. So remember, the study is about, are people having more or less sex?
Right.
So those are the facts. Everything else is speculation.
Right. They're hypothesizing about the reasons why, but they haven't tested those hypotheses yet.
That's right. So you can claim Netflix and helicopter parenting, etc. And I know they said that they tested for porn, but they might not. They might have missed other parts of it, which is that maybe knowing that porn is available later leads to less sex now. I don't know. I'm not in the weeds on this research, but just the idea that you're spending more time on your kids, hence you don't want to have sex, seems to me a weak sauce explanation for what's going on.
No, but I get it, Jank. I don't have kids, but I get it, right? Because if you are using up a ton of energy making sure that everything is perfect for your kids and you're, micromanaging every moment of their lives, that's exhausting. And I think the more exhausted you are, the less likely you're interested in being intimate with your partner after a long day.
I know, but I feel like this is much more likely to be something that affects us all, because it affects people, even if you control for region, economic status, race, gender, etc. So there are plenty of people without kids, and they have plenty of time. I don't know what it is. I'm not with JR that the phones are zapping us.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it is some phenomenon, whether it's chemical, right? Now I'm getting into not crazy speculation, over speculation, because you asked me. We're putting the pesticides in the air. Could that be affecting us? We know that it's affecting the semen count. So could that be affecting our testosterone? And it's actually the men who are driving for less sex.
Right.
I don't know, right? So
Or, prescription drug use.
Yes,
That's
prescription drug
definitely part
use
of
is
it.
far more likely because it does have that side effect, and people use a lot more drugs.
Right.
So those, I think, are more fruitful avenues for research than Netflix and helicopter parenting.
No, but I think that she named Netflix.
I know it's not just Netflix.
Look, sometimes you just don't want to be physical. Sometimes after a long day, you just want to go home and you want to chill. You just want to watch TV or do something that doesn't require any energy whatsoever. Like, I get that. And also, can we just keep it 100% real about what happens? Like, you're married. It's the same person every day, right? Like, and I love my husband, but like, it's just, single people have more sex. If they're lucky and they're out there and they're doing their thing. But
I know, but it used to be just your husband before too. By the way, one other thing, which goes to her Netflix point, which is that we have so many more entertainment options.
Yes.
In the old days, there was no TV, there was no radio. 20 years ago there was, but you see my point? Like, when there was no TV, there was no radio. They had non-stop sex. Because what else were they going to do, right? And now that we have the internet and all these 1,000 entertainment options,
smartphones,
our phones, etc. Yes, you might have less time for sex because those are actually appealing options. Rather than, you want to hear Grandpa tell that same story again? No, I don't. Let's go have sex.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right. We have time for a quick story or no?
We do not have time for a quick story, unfortunately. We're running out of time. At least in this segment, we don't.
Okay. Guys, here's what we're going to do. So, if you're in the Sirius Satellite Radio audience, you know that sometimes, look, we give you a full 2-hour show, okay? But we have a couple stories left over. We do those on tytnetwork.com/live. And so if you're watching online, you're going to get a next segment, and you're going to hear the stories we promised you about the sea fleas and whether being transgender is a choice or there's a genetic component to it. So we'll do those stories immediately. And if you're online, that this break takes very little time. We come right back. But if you're, again, in any of these audiences and you miss any part of the show, that's part of the point of membership. You go to tytnetwork.com/join. And you get the whole show ad-free and watch anytime you want. The entirety of the show. And you can also pick my topics. You can zoom forward, etc. And you get all the network shows. So if you like Game of Thrones reviews, you can get those, easily podcast them. You got Aggressive Progressive. You've got Old School, which is a really fun podcast. All that is for membership. And then
the best part is post games. Like, let's be honest.
Okay, right? I love the post games, but I love all those shows.
Right.
And in the post game today, for example, Peter Thiel has
turned his back on Donald Trump.
So he's a gay Republican donor. I don't know if Trump's attacks against the LGBT community has something to do with it, but mainly he says it's about incompetence. So we'll talk about why he's turning on him, who else is turning on him. Republicans are smelling blood in the water. It is fascinating. And I'll do a little bit of Game of Thrones review for you guys. And like I said, later in the week, I really want to dive into this civil war in the Democratic Party. Because people think, Democrats shouldn't fight. That's nonsense. There's going to be a primary. Winter is coming.
Yep.
You can't avoid fighting in a situation like that. We're going to make our case. They're going to make their case, and somebody's going to win. Anyway, all of that is part of the network programming. So tytnetwork.com/join. And it's all ad-free. Come join us and support independent media. All right, for the online audience, we'll be right back.